Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today I'm joined by a wonderful guest, Yizz the eunuch, and today we're going to be discussing a variety of topics, mainly revolving around the Go Free method. But first, how are you doing today, Yizz?
I'm doing just fine. I've been having a lot of family and friend activity. We always like to get together and visit a lot during December for the holidays. So I been having a very good few days. How about you?
I've had a bunch of busy because of college finals and planning uh, live streams and video content for the channel, so lots of good
Oh,
things are
okay.
coming with that
Well,
front.
good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that you are in school and doing good stuff. That's nice to hear.
Yes, we have to have people who are going to become future elites, as I like to say. At least that's what I like to tell myself.
Yeah. That's one of the things I hope that my content has done because if I inspire at least 110 to rise up and create real culture and be a good leader of men for our people, then I feel like that's a success, even if it's just one.
Yes, it needs more than 100 Trump voters or 100,000. I forgot what AA said. It was like 100,000 or something. One
Yeah.
elite, something insane like that. But it's true though. It's the way societies are governed, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, is there any particular question or factoid you'd like me to start with today? I'm prepared to talk about anything and everything that you have me on for.
So I think we should discuss the Go Free method because that's kind of what you're known for in our sphere, as well as
Sure.
the unifier and just being a nice person,
Well,
extremely
thank you.
good. Because we have a lot of bad actors and spurs in the sphere who give us a bad name and cause a bunch of fights and conflict. I'm
Yeah.
not going to name names, but I think we all know
And
who I'm discussing.
yeah. What would you say the sphere that we're in would be? It's a mix of white identity. It's a mix of pro America stuff. It's a mix of bringing back righteousness and morality. What name would you give the sphere that we're in together?
Um, Everything united against liberal hegemony or the K. Everything
Okay.
united against that. I think is a great name because you don't have to deal with the dissident right or the new right, all the baggage that comes with that. I think that's a pretty good label. We're all
I
united
like that
against
just
this
fine.
hegemonic evil that occupies the U.S. and the West right now.
Yeah. Let me think for just a second. The community that I'm in with Jason Kuna and the Go Free people, we call it the White Wellbeing Community because we're focused on, instead of a negative message of, like we talked about just before we went live, I I like my message and my expressed sentiments to encourage people to love themselves, love their kin, and love their history, and be inspired to create culture and create unity among our people, our many ethnicities going forward. And that is a focus on well being instead of a focus on a negative vision of harming others or excising others from your civilization or punishing people or getting rid of immigrants, that kind of thing. Now, I do think limiting immigration and removing the negative element, that's, of course, an important part of building a healthy empire or healthy country, of course. But I think that since you call yourself American populist, I sort of lean heavily into the pleb populist arena myself because that's the arena that I can engage with regularly. I can inspire people around me at church or my friend group or whatever, and having the right words and the right mindset for how to talk to normal people around you. That's what the Go Free Method's all about. So let me just give you a quick little rundown of what the Go Free Method is and why it is. We have lived in an era of, quote, denazification in the entire West since the Nuremberg trials. And what does that mean? That means there has been overt and subvert efforts into deracinating the people of the West, attacking racial and ethnic identity, just for white people, though, not for anybody else, just for whites. And that anyone who goes against the grain there is labeled an extremist, a far right, a Nazi, a Hitler, a boogeyman, a white supremacist, all these other ugly anti white slurs that they call people who try to cultivate a healthy racial or ethnic consciousness and build culture around that. And that is a very natural, normal human thing for every group of people to do on Earth. And white people should be allowed to do that, especially in our own damn countries. And so this ugly narrative that we're in, the Go Free method calls the anti-white narrative. And if people get hung up on the word white, you can always substitute the word Western just to wet their whistle, just to get them talking and listening. Because sometimes some people are really titchy and it's difficult to get them to listen or to walk them someplace. So sometimes with people who are particularly deep into the mind poison, I'll say anti-Western at first before I start saying anti-white. But it means the same thing because white people make Western culture just like, Asian people make Eastern culture, et cetera, et cetera. So the Go Free method is to dispel the lies and the slurs about us in regular everyday discourse and in the media and commercials and things like that, while also carrying a positive message and a positive social tactic of how to talk about these things. So those are called mimetic curatives, or MCs for short, to counter the mimetic pathogens. That's the mind poison I talked about earlier, which comfortably changes to MP. So the Go Free method is about using MCs to counter the MPs to hopefully give people a fighting chance at having a healthy racial and ethnic identity in a way that it does not involve being disparaging or hateful to an out-group. It involves being positive and protective of your in-group. That's the Go Free method in a nutshell.
That's definitely something I think we need, because a lot of us who get really radicalized into this, especially the young Zoomers, and I'm going to put us on the burner here.
Okay.
A lot of people in our sphere, when they start realizing the stuff about the current power that dominates us, the narratives, they become they want to embrace the names and labels of our enemies, which is a terrible strategy for a couple of reasons, even though, they may use the argument of, well, it's based, we want to be edgy and just go ahead and do it. That's extremely bad, because the religion that dominates America is liberal progressivism, unfortunately.
Yes,
and
unfortunately.
If you want to convert people to our cause, which is something we have to do, whether elites or peasants, you can't be openly espousing Satanism, which is everything, Nazis, National Socialism, nationalism. All of these people are going to connect that in their minds. And then they're just going to turn you off, not listen to anything you said. They're going to write you off as crazy, insane. This is what they're doing with the Kanye thing right now. A wasted opportunity, I think. This always happens when you embrace the names and labels of our enemies. And so I think we struggled with this for such a long time, just because nobody's found a better solution, because for the longest time, the extreme far right was dominated by these groups, by low IQ and feds, neo-Nazi, KKK groups. And I'm not saying there's not any good people in those groups. There are, but the vast majority of them are bad actors.
Or people who are under the employ of CNN or the federal government.
Or that too.
Yeah.
And so, when you listen to those people, you get the results, which is continued liberal hegemony and our movement not growing, not reaching the people who it needs to.
And also perpetuating the narrative trope that anyone who cares about racial and ethnic identity for white people is some kind of boogeyman in the narrative.
Yes, an outcast of society, somebody who must be ostracized. This is boomer truth, essentially, what AA calls it. You can call it whatever you want, but again, I like to refer to it as a religion, because it is fundamentally. This is why they justify things like pedophilia, trans kids, trans story hour, pride parades, with 3-year-olds. It's a religion to them, and if you attack it, you're being equivalent to being an atheist in 14th century Europe or something,
Yeah.
And you will be ostracized, and unfortunately it's reversed now to where they're the majority because they control all the institutions, but it's just not a smart move, especially when we have, we are the minority,
Yeah. So if you'd like, I can give you some examples of the tactics that I use and that many people in the white well-being community use instead of the old failed tactics. Let me give you a brief rundown of what I consider to be old failed tactics. The old failed tactics, whether it be National Socialist or Fascist or Neo-Confederate talking points, those usually involve talking about historical revisionism, meaning pointing out what was a lie about this in 1945, or what was pointing out about who started what in the teens of the 1900s, mixed with, we just have to make sure everyone knows that the Jews control everything, or, America really isn't America, it's just Israel, that kind of shit. And the reason why that has failed is that has been tried by people who have more wealth and money than you and I will ever have, from Henry Ford all the way up to Kanye West. People have tried this and failed. And I think the reason it fails is twofold. Number one, these tactics fail because in the narrative we live in, the people who control media and government and schools, especially after the Long March through the institutions was complete by the end of the 40s, everyone lives in this narrative where when you talk about anyone as an ethnic or racial group who isn't white, you are the villain, you are Satan, you are Hitler, you are the bad guy. Because we see in movies and video games, storybooks, comic books, all strong men who want to build imperium are likened unto the mustache man, the Adolf Hitler, the painter. And that narrative trope, it exists in people's minds no matter how much you and I might know it to be false. So you have to work unfortunately, we have to labor under that narrative for now until we can subvert that narrative and get enough strength outside of it to where people can have easy and open discourse about racial and ethnic issues again. Right now, you can't do that. It's not possible. So you have to use hacks. And I don't mean hacking like you see in the movies where people sit at a computer and type really fast and magic happens on a screen. Hacking means finding methods and workarounds that can get you the result or the data that you want when people are trying desperately, whether it be with firewalls or counterintelligence, to keep you from getting that result. And so the hack here is the go free method. Because what is the defense screen? What is the black ice in this situation? It is the meme pathogens, such as white people have no culture, such as the melting pot, such as, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the meme curatives are cleverly designed and scientifically tested methods, patterns, and even single words that do not trigger those defenses or attack modes that this narrative has put into the minds of our brothers and sisters. So instead of saying those immigrants are bad because they're demographically replacing us, you can point to things that are easy to see in everyday life, like commercials, video games, school books, things that professors or preachers talk about. And you can say, I think that is erasing white people. I don't think that's right, because white erasure is wrong. I don't think any group of people should be erased or harmed or told that they don't, or that they can't make culture. I don't think that this mass migration is good because it's destroying our ethnicity. It's destroying our country and our people. And that's bad. I don't want any country to be destroyed. So you can take these small steps in intelligent ways just to open the door, to make people around you listen to you and give you the time of day without pushing without stepping on those already laid landmines of mean pathogens. And then once you have that door open, people might say, yeah, I have noticed that, man. There's not a lot of white people in commercials anymore. Or, yeah, I hate how after the stupid BLM riots and that George Floyd crap, it's ruined my favorite football. And then you can say stuff immediately following up with that and say, yeah, the anti-whitism is really bad. We should do what we can to end anti-whitism so our children have a future that doesn't hate them for being white. And that, it might be saying the same things in spirit as the old failed methods were trying to say, but it's saying it in a way that regular people around you will hear, first of all. And then second of all, they then will have easy words like anti-white, anti-whitism, anti-white narrative, anti-white slur. They can be armed and equipped with those easy to use words and phrases that they then can share in their lives, that they can say at their PTA meeting, that they can say at their church meeting, that they can say to their friends at their gun club or to their friend that they trust at work, to try to change things, because those words are not marked as dangerous yet by this narrative. It could take years for those to have the same countering power that the old language and playing the villain has for stopping cultivating a healthy white identity. So A good meme curative that I use a lot is Hollywood isn't history. Because a lot of times when I open the door with people, they'll bring up Hitler, they'll bring up the Holocaust, they'll bring up stuff like that and be like, well, I don't want to be like that. And no, I'm not a Nazi, but I do think white people shouldn't, be harmed or whatever. And then I immediately say, yeah, well, Hollywood isn't history. All that stuff on TV and in comic books, man. Like the victors of wars write history books. So Hollywood is not history. We can't believe what we're told about all that. But what's important is that stuff, whether it's true or not, that's in the past. What we need to be concerned about is what's being done to us now. And so that gives you not just the moral high ground, but the intellectual high ground to maintain a comfortable, healthy conversation with people in your life and give them not just ideas and words, but the correct way to phrase things when they have to talk to other people about it. Because if you go to an HR lady at work, or you go to a professor, or you go to a dean of your school or a principal, and you start talking about this is bad, and I'm pro-white, and white people are the righteous inheritors of this land. Well, those words and ideas are marked as boogeyman language. But when you go to a dean or you go to HR and you say, I'm being discriminated against for being white, this anti-whitism cannot stand. It's evil, it's wrong, and it's illegal. The anti-whitism must stop. I've been called anti-white slurs 3 times today. This person said this about me. This person called me a white supremacist. This person called me whatever the hell it might be at school or at work. If you talk about it in the correct moral way that works in the current era that we're in, then you can actually start having some success at fighting back against this anti-whitism. And I think that if we get more and more people, they don't have to use the exact words and phrases that I use, but the ones in the Go Free method are ones that Jason and the community has used for years and tested, and the ones that work the best are the ones that go into the current iteration of the book. Right now, it's on its second official iteration and its third actual iteration. The first one didn't have an actual book, and the current iteration of Go Free you can get on Amazon. I don't know when this is going live, but you can put it in. I'll give you the link. You can put it in the description. The Kindle version is only a few dollars. If you want a hardback copy, it's only like 10 or 11 bucks. And it's easy to read. It reads like a mix of a lab journal and a how-to book. It's not a dense, complicated, hard to understand book. It's just a small guidebook of a couple hundred pages that gives you examples of how to think on the topics, why to not be a villain in the current narrative, and the language and phrases you can use to subvert that narrative while creating a positive narrative of our own around a positive, healthy ethnic identity in whatever white country you live in. And of course, Jason's America is American. Most of us live in America that are pushing this narrative and building this Go Free method. So it works really well in America, especially the South, because most of us that started it are from here. Now, I know that I just went and talked for like 10 or 15 minutes without a break, but I know that was a lot to maybe digest. But are there any particular questions you have about anything I just said, or questions about this method that you want to talk about?
No, I feel like you made a bunch of good points. Trying to I understand why these people want to just keep trying this failed thing. If we're going to rebrand the old terms, and that's going to finally convert people. We're going to finally wake them up from the programming. It's like, how they capture monkeys in Africa. How they do it is they have a cage and they put a banana in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the monkey wants the banana. However, his hand gets stuck in it, and because he doesn't want to let go of the banana, he remains trapped there. Not because he can't escape, but because he mentally is. He can't let it go. And so they capture the monkey, not by capturing him physically, but by trapping him in this narrative that is designed to fail. It is designed to support their narrative in all ways. So, yeah, I think we definitely have to change the terms if we want to see any positive change in our direction. Because, like you said, if you opened up a conversation with a normie by saying, Hitler, Mustache Man was actually good, or
Mussolini knew what he was doing, that kind of thing.
The JQ question, mass immigration. You've automatically hit the third rail. You're a crazy, a Nazi, or insane. All 3 of them,
right?
And they'll automatically dismiss you outright, not even consider anything you say. Or worse, you will be fired from your job and other things that come with that, depending on the people you're talking to.
Yeah, especially depending on where you live. Some places are worse than others.
Yes, it is worse for Blue America than it is for Red America. But
Well, I would say
again,
any big city, even in a red state, is dangerous.
but again, we are all governed by this ideology, so it really doesn't matter. So changing the rhetoric, changing the terms, actually opens up a conversation because maybe you could relate to that person who watches football. Hey,
Hmm.
yeah, I've noticed that. Why are they always pushing this anti-whitism? Like everybody there is, a black anchor. They're always talking about racial justice, how white people need to pay reparations. Yeah, I've noticed that. And
Hmm.
then, wow, you've had a conversation with them. You've actually had maybe open the door for further things to be discussed that wouldn't have previously. So abandoning these old terms, which are a trap, a monkey trap,
Hmm.
it's just common. It's just like sense, like to actually win.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think a lot of people who want to just stick to the old ways, the old nationalist ways of, we're going to cultivate this national pride and we're going to have, white pride worldwide and all that. It's like, I'm sorry, dude, that's not coming. Like, we're nowhere near that, and unfortunately, the deck is stacked against us, and the anti-whites control that narrative. So no matter how much those words might mean to some people, they have a difficulty realizing no matter how foolish or stupid New York Times and CNN might be, they literally are moving themselves to the unreachable radical edges of the conversation window. And I don't think that we're going to have victory making our lives and our talking points only appealing to the fringe of the fringe and the outcasts. We have to start appealing to people that have real wealth and power and sway over communities and churches and schools and businesses. And being a radical crazy person is no way to get institutional power. Because when you look back at the long march through the institutions, that these evil anti-white Jews and the Marxists and the Leninists and all these people, they carefully, with great effort and intelligence, designed a framework of language and tactics to weasel their way into places they didn't have power so they could then one day have it. And we now live under their dominance now. So we're the underdogs, whether the other people in our sphere like to admit that or not. We have to use the tactics that they once used or something similar to it to quote unquote hack. And like I talked about earlier, hacking just means finding the ways to bypass the safeguard to get the result you want. And that's the boat that we're in right now. We have to be careful. We live under constant threat of censorship, depersoning, losing our bank accounts, losing our jobs, even having our kids taken away from us. And so we have to devise the right pathway to obtain real power and sway in our countries again. And so we have to have a long march of our own, but we have to do it in ways that work for us and our people instead of what worked for the negative anti-white people. So that's why I like the Go Free method. It is the best, most intelligent new thing I have found to actually start, quote, hacking the system to take control back from the people who took it 80 or 90 years ago.
Yes, so we need people who are actually serious about winning. And that is the one positive thing I will say about our current situation. Dave had a conversation about this where he mentioned, the right is actually gaining true believers and the left is losing them.
Yes,
Um, it's all
that is
just a
good.
grift because there's a percentage of the population who will just grift on whoever is in power to enrich themselves, which, okay, those people will always exist in society. However,
Yeah.
the true believers of the left are dying out, and the right is gaining them
Hmm.
at a pretty fast rate. So ultimately, if we actually embrace smarter moves like changing rhetoric and abandoning the old ways, we could be a lot more effective in speeding up the process of gaining more elite support to our ideas,
And
like we're
also the
seeing with
thing,
Elon Musk.
yeah, the thing that I like the most about the Go Free method and this approach is you are not encouraging young men to self-sabotage and destroy their lives and separate themselves from community. Because if you do what I suggest and what the white well-being community does, then you still get to have your job. You still get to have your family and you still get to have your church group and your friend group and watch football and play games and that kind of thing because your words and your ideas are not so radical and so outside of the Overton window that you are disallowed natural community around you. And that is the most critical thing, in my opinion, is getting young men to have the right ideas and words so they can actually use their vigor and their passion in constructive ways instead of thinking they're doing that while they're just self-destructing and sabotaging themselves instead. I think that's a very important thing to speak on here.
No, it's extremely important. I mean, we saw what happened with the original alt-right. I mean, yes, it was fun for a time. It's embracing these old talking points. It may seem
Oh, I
fun
mean,
and
trust
edgy,
me, like
but
even though I was never a nat sock myself, like I was a huge, like between like 2010 and 2015 when the Gamergate stuff got really big and the old alt-right was just cranking out the Pepe memes and stuff. I was around 30 then, in my young 30s, and man, I was having a ball. I was creating spicy memes, I was creating all kinds of stuff, but I didn't realize that really wasn't going to go anywhere. At the time, I thought, oh, hey, this is a big cultural movement, and I'm doing something to help bring truth and reasonability back on the table. But I wasn't doing that. Like, that's not really what happened. The meme war was just the meme war confined to the internet. And now we've discovered that the internet is almost entirely enemy-controlled territory. And so while those meme offensives and the online crusading and stuff was, good, I'm glad I did those things, I realized by like 2017 that it was never going to be enough. And if you tried to translate all of that meme war stuff to real life, it just ostracized me and it made me seem like a crazy person that nobody wanted anything to do with. And so that's when I really started saying, okay, we have to just come up with something new that works instead of doing this shit, because this is not going to work.
no, and ultimately, what led to all that, all the epic, videos about the JQ or all these things, like those people, like, are gone now. They're forgotten. They had their moment, and they were censored by the regime. They're demonized. They were deplatformed, and many
Mhm.
of their lives are still ruined to this day because they participated in Charlottesville.
Yeah.
Everything is tarnished. They're not
I
allowed
almost
in
went to
polite
Charlottesville, and I'm
society.
really glad I didn't, because back then, if I would have gone, my life probably would have been a lot worse than it is. Like, I might have even gotten arrested or something. Like, this is why I'm encouraging young men like yourself now to be very cautious with any kind of public movement or demonstration. I don't think those are good for us anymore. I think that when it comes to political rallies and stuff, that's okay, but avoid being a villain in the anti-white narrative is my wisdom. And if there is a public thing or a protest or a rally and it is ran by people who or is heavily populated by people who openly play the villain in the anti-white narrative, don't go. Don't be a part of that, because the likelihood of your life being severely negatively impacted is very high.
Extremely high. And we saw what happened with most of those people. They're gone from history, essentially, except in our memories and the memes. But ultimately, they accomplished nothing. Ultimately, all of that, all the effort, all those rallies, the censorship, the arrest. What did it accomplish? Nothing. Ultimately,
Yeah.
and this is the thing about how you choose your words carefully. They want young men, the people traditionally who change things in society. They want you to be cut down early. They
Mm-hmm.
don't want to allow you to become an influential member, part of your community or society. They want you ostracized and alone. Because again, the lone wolf dies.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun to embrace this radical. Well, we need to be the most radical, the most ostracized, the most censored. Like it's a competition. That's not smart. It's essentially embracing defeatism by your enemies. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, but I'm saying it's not a positive thing. It's ultimately a negative thing because these young men are having their lives ruined early before they can even like have a family or grow in their business or become a part of the local community. Because
Mm-hmm.
now they're ostracized, they're demonized, their life is ruined, they've been debanked. They're never going to be hired from anywhere, so they can't support a family, so they don't get married.
Yeah.
So, what's worth more to our movement, ultimately in our future? A young man who actually has a family, gets married, becomes a part of his community, grows in position in his business, or a man who goes to one of these rallies, blows up for like a few days, his life is ruined, he's ostracized.
Yeah.
I think the latter, the first one, is far more valuable.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why the people that I choose to network with, the people I invite to my camping trips and my picnics I have, the people I choose to go attend to their rallies, or not rallies, but their private get-togethers, their basket weaving, like we say, I choose carefully who I invite and who I go be a part of. And I limit that to people who I know are good, upstanding people who care about having families and building businesses and being a functional part of society, because those are the men that will have influence. Those are the men who will actually get things done and have the power to change things. Where, 1,000 internet warriors and radicals who, wear swastika armbands or do even less egregious things than that, but only talk about the JQ or hating immigrants. I think that those men are never going to amount to anything, even if there are thousands of them. They are just radicals in waiting to be utilized by whoever is in power. And I would rather be a part of the people who are actually cultivating culture and creating what I consider to be real power, which is the strength of community and men who can be leaders of other men. That's what we should be investing in, because that's what we need more than anything.
Yes, we need actual people who are going to be smart about leadership and organizing these things. And as we saw, that's extremely important for our side because, again, we are the attacked minority in society. We are the ostracized movement. As much as the left wants to say that they're dissidents, that's just, it's unbelievably, that's the code they like to tell themselves as they put you on the trains to re-education camp and take away your kids.
Yeah.
In
It's
reality,
it's like,
we
hey,
are
you're
the tiny
oppressing me.
minority.
It's like, you're oppressing me, so I'm going to make one phone call and destroy your entire life. It's like, okay, who really has the power here then?
But again, because they have regime control, people believe that. That's the only reason they believe that. And that's the good thing. I mean, we saw what happens as soon as the narrative collapses, like in Afghanistan or the trans thing. It immediately falls apart because people actually don't believe this naturally. However, because the media constantly 24/7 pumps this out, it can overwhelms their natural good judgments with this just garbage. I think that is a white pill that we should kind of hold on to, is that their narratives fall faster than a deck of cards once they don't have total media monopolies.
And I think that's one of the reasons I'm very white pilled right now. Is my own personal life aside, when I look at the culture that people like you and I are helping build, there are thousands of us right now who are using all the social media available to us to speak the truth, to speak sense. And we are the ones getting followers because people like me, like my channel barely has 4,000 followers, everything included. And I've had to fight tooth and nail for those, being suppressed by the algorithm, being silenced, losing accounts, getting strikes, having tons of my content removed. And I still am growing. That tells me that we have the right thing in mind and we're doing the right thing, and we are not alone. And there are millions of people who want the kind of ideas that we have to be what takes prominence and dictates how we are governed. And when it comes to how we're governed, I know that technically I guess I'm on the right, but I don't like the left-right divide. I do my best to never call myself right-wing or left-wing because I care more about the well-being of my people and the future of our civilization than I care about whatever political structure or political divide of the old argot that I happen to be labeled as. I don't care if people call me left or right or centrist or whatever. I don't care about that. And I don't care if the government that we have is a constitutional republic or a Christian monarchy, as long as the people are being served properly by those who govern them. That's what matters more than anything, because every system, whether it's communism, National Socialism, fascism, whatever the hell America became, a Christian monarchy, a Muslim caliphate, as long as the people in charge are doing evil to the people they're supposed to govern, then it's bad, it's rotten, it's corrupt. And so any system can be corrupted and be terrible for the people that have to live under it. And so the opposite of that is also true. Any system can benefit and be great for the people under it if the people guiding the ship have the well-being of the people they're supposed to serve in mind. So that's why I don't call myself left wing or right wing, and I don't champion a particular political system over another. I am tired of libertarian versus monarchy versus republic versus democracy. I think those conversations are completely useless and going nowhere to help us at all. That's why I've given up all of that, and I just focus on spreading white well-being and encouraging others to take the moral, intellectual path of doing what they can to embolden the young men around them to create culture.
Yeah, I think it's important that we don't purely spiral into what is the most, furthest, based system of government. Like, we should try to focus on building and trying to convert people to our side. That's what we should be focused on.
Mhm.
Having these conversations, well, yes, but like we're not in power. Like once we gain in power, or our allies do, then we can have these conversations about what is the best
Exactly.
system. But until then,
Yeah.
focus on the issues at hand.
Exactly. Like if we can one day, maybe in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, have, you know, at least somewhat of a white positive, America first type of governance, then we can start reapproaching those ideas of, okay, this economic system is bad for these reasons. I think we should change this kind of governance. We need to strike this amendment. We need to add this amendment. We need to change this policy. We need to move towards this kind of government. That kind of thing has its place. Those arguments and those intellectual ideas are interesting to me. Those things are fascinating. Like, I love the Mises libertarian stuff. I like some of the ANCAP stuff I've read. I like reading and learning about different economic models, different government models. I think that stuff is cool. It's just none of that matters now because we have no elite backing and the structure that we're under wants us enslaved or dead. So until we can get to a place where that's not the case, I think all of the talk about what kind of structure or economics we're supposed to have is just fruitless waffle.
Yeah, ultimately, it's kind of meaningless. It's kind of just like a circle jerk in a sense. It's like who can have the most, based classical sense of government, that goes against the liberal narrative. I mean, okay, it's ultimately kind of meaningless
Mm-hmm.
because we're not in power, or our allies are
Right.
not in power. But moving on to a different subject,
Uh-huh.
I think there's a couple of reasons that we should ultimately be white pilled. Is that ultimately we are the side of life, quite literally, because the other side fundamentally is anti-life. It's
Yes.
climate change. You need to stop having kids. It's not just for whites, although they are pressuring whites. It's for all human beings. And we see this with their Malthusian kind of worldview. These like types, these Bill Gates types,
Yeah.
pushing this narrative, and ultimately, even though they have all this mass immigration, they're weaponizing against the West. In the long run, when these groups embrace their ideology, their birth rates fall below replacement too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying, that we just have to wait and do nothing, but what I'm saying is their ideology ultimately fails in a sense
Yes.
because I don't have kids that, it's anti life, it's
Mm-hmm.
pro abortion, it's pro death, it's pro.
It's also pro sloth because if they can talk you into not caring about birth, if they can talk you into not caring about building a family and having lots of kids, then it's very easy for them to talk you into being slothful, into just going to work at a wage slave job because you need to get the good boy tokens that you can put into the machine and get your dopamine. And that makes for complacent, slothful men. And where there are complacent, slothful men, there there is no Caesar, there is no Imperium, there is no Christendom. And so when you look at the kind of things that built Western civilization, they did not have a message of sloth. They had a message of dedication. They had a message of imperium, a message of being part of something bigger than you, a divine order, a natural order of things. And I think that eventually, if we continue on this path, we are going to see the waning and the collapse of the anti life sloth narrative for the pro life proactive narrative.
Yes, ultimately, because like one side ultimately leads to nothing. Like, and the reason why they can maintain power is like it's like Dave likes to say, the left doesn't have kids, but they'll take yours
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
brainwash them. And that is a problem, but ultimately they're not producing kids themselves, and their movement ultimately doesn't produce life itself. So that is something to be white-pilled about, is that we are the side of order, the side of life, the side of actually building things. They're the side of tearing things down.
Yes.
entropy, decline.
Hmm. Revolution,
And
that kind of thing. Yeah.
that's ultimately all they can ever do. That's ultimately their frame of reference for everything.
Yes.
And you see this with all the movements they've led throughout history.
Absolutely, yeah. Because even going all the way back to the French Revolution, if you look at the French Revolution to now, again, I don't like the left-right divide, but using that language because that's their words and I don't care for them. The left-leaning movements for the last 200 or 300 years, they focus on destroying what is and replacing religion, but they don't offer a replacement. They disassemble family. They negate God and faith. They take away from imperium and break it down. They destroy race and ethnicity, and they don't offer a healthy replacement. So there is no future going down that path. And I think more and more people are realizing that now.
And it also doesn't help that they're extremely incompetent as they are entrenched in power. The smart people ultimately die off and they're replaced by these absolute biolenous products who's that pup fetish guy who's now in charge of our nuclear arsenal? These people.
Oh yeah.
All of these, just absolute people who never would have been in society. These are the people who should be ostracized in society and would be in normal times. But again, their alliance is an alliance of the high and the extreme degenerates. The absolute bottom of the barrel. The lowest common denominator, as we like to say. Bot mutants. And ultimately, that doesn't lead to anything. Yes, it's humiliating that they're in charge of society, but they can't govern. Ultimately, it ultimately leads to decline. And there are some elites who actually don't like this. They see where this is going, and it will ultimately be their downfall. And it always is.
Speaking of white pill, the Tennessee, the state I live in, the Tennessee rate of homeschooling in the last 2 years is up 440%. So that's a good sign. And I think that those numbers are reflected all across America because I think in general, homeschooling in America is up by 200 or 300%. So I think that we're seeing people taking action to remove their children from hostile systems. And to me, that says a lot because if the numbers are up by that much, and private school enrollment is also up by hundreds of percent as well, I think that the more the media narrative and this ugly anti-white, anti-life narrative, the more that they are thrashing in their death throes, the more regular people run away from it. And I think that's a huge white pill that we should acknowledge and celebrate.
Yes, the Amerikaners who have the kids, this is a red America. Although we'll just call it traditional America, actual America, not libtard America. To use a reference. The cities or suburbs now. These are the people who have always been the recruiting base for the army, and they make society function. They are the people who do electricity lines, plumbing, farming.
You should say we. You're part of us.
Yes, I say that. I'm just talking about in generally.
Yeah, I know.
And ultimately, Blue America is the managers, but they're increasingly incompetent at that role, and they're running out of true believers. And that is a problem for them. People
Absolutely.
who actually sincerely believe in their narrative is dying out.
Yep.
As it just becomes...
in a lot of ways, quite literally, because the boomers are the generation that is their bastion of functionaries. And they quite literally are retiring and dying out.
Yes, they're primary financiers because they have 21% of the wealth in this country.
Yeah, the huge swath of red Americans who are boomers that are at least we ain't speaking German types. Those people are the ones that have heavily contributed to the neolib neocon political machine. And those dollars through that machine are what has given birth to the let's just call it the media storm. And they're losing not just funding, but like you said, bioleninism means that they're managed terribly, they're ran incompetently, and they're being replaced by people like me and you that are far more intelligent and competent and also ideologically driven by responsible moral ideas. And I think that regular people are responding to that because our way appeals to the Amerikaner in natural sympathetic ways, where it requires an entire life of propaganda for regular people to be complacent in our enemy's narrative.
Yeah, Mick world or whatever term you want to use for it.
Yeah.
And I think another problem they ultimately that our enemies have is they have no identity outside of consuming objects.
Exactly.
This is where the soy jack comes from with the Nintendo Switch, famously. That's a quite famous one.
Yeah.
All these people, their identity, since they have no kids, they're worried about climate change. So they become fat, lazy, decadent.
Yep.
Um,
Meanwhile,
also,
Amerikaners that have to work for a living, we're fairly fit usually, and we at least understand the basics of how to live life. Like a lot of these people that are of the quote unquote enemy group, the anti-white narrative people, the millions of Americans in the machine that push this, in general, those people don't know how to live or exist outside of that. And when that crumbles, they are nothing. Meanwhile, the people on our side of things, we're the ones that know how to have a garden, that know how to farm, that know how to fix cars, that know how to lay plumbing, that know how to do electric work. Like, our side of things has all of the people and skill set and passions for making life possible, where they don't. They don't have that.
No, we saw this with the Chaz thing, with that community garden that failed after a day.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah,
just imagine that tenfold when their system can't supply them with insulin and Starbucks lattes every day. These people would
or the
starve to death.
Lysenkoism, or the Maoists who thought they could spiritually speak to plants and make the farms better, that kind of shit.
Yes, these are the same people fundamentally. They are fundamentally stupid about reality.
Yes.
And they have no transcendent value beyond their material objects and pleasures. That's an advantage that we have, because ultimately, what drives people in the long run to persevere and have families is the hope for living on after these trivial things here. It's this idea that you give something up for the greater good. Ultimately, there's something greater than yourself, and that's something that they can never have beyond their material objects in the state.
Yep. Because no matter how much they indulge or become part of or are institutionalized or pathologized, they have nothing in the end besides what the structure assigns to them, and their identity is only that. They are not building something that they know will carry whatever is non-materially valuable forward, because they don't have anything non-materially valuable. And I think that is the crux of the enemy group, is they lack real substance. They lack pathos. And our side is dripping with it.
Yeah, they're ultimately meeting. This is why they're anti-SSRIs are extremely high, antidepressants. This is why in all colleges and institutions, they have to have books about how not to whack yourself. Why you shouldn't do that. Why do you think this has to be they have to have or have classes now about this stuff
about not cutting yourself?
Yeah.
It's so fucked up. It's so messed up. I'm sorry. I don't know if I'm supposed to use bad language on your channel. I'm sorry. But,
no, it's fine. I don't care. My channel's not getting monetized. Ultimately, their ideology leads to people being depressed, nihilistic about life. And our side is the side of life. It's the side of actual, people who want to have a future. They want to replicate. They see the greater good in things. Yes.
Yeah, I like the word propagate, because propagate doesn't just mean procreation. It means, propagating your way of life, empowering your ethnicity, making your community strong so it has a good future. We propagate, they don't.
Nor do they produce anything valuable long term. And there's a lot to be white pilled in that, ultimately. So,
it might be hard for us in the short term, and we might be sad because of the burden we carry and knowing that, things kind of suck for us right now. Personally, in my personal life, things are kind of hard for me right now. I lost my career. I lost my house. I've had trouble with my family. I've had trouble with my husband. And those things are hard and they make me sad. But when it comes to things bigger than me, when it comes to whether it be Imperium or whether it just be my country, America, or my state, Tennessee, or my ethnicity, Appalachian, I am white-pilled about those because the future actually is starting to look good for us for a change. I see positive change and growth that I've never noticed before in my life happening around me. And I'm assuming that's happening other places in America too. Because I talk to people in Texas, I talk to people in Idaho and Montana and Wyoming, and all across this country in rural areas, there are movements to create better schools, better churches, better ways of life. And I think that that is going to carry us towards a better future. And I'm glad that I'm a part of that.
No, it ultimately will, because it will produce like a society people want to live in. Their society produces nothing but death and Coca-Cola, like, which isn't
And material
sustainable.
enslavement. And I think that the material enslavement can't be underspoken here. The goal of this machine is the reason why it's anti-white is it specifically wants Westerners to lay down and give up and give away the heritage of our entire civilization to foreigners. It wants us to be slaves to a material machine that we can't escape, and it wants to extract the maximum amount of labor and wealth it can from us until we are no more. And I think that building community, building culture, that is the antidote to that.
Yes, building something that will actually inspire future generations and future elites as a result of that. Something that actually they'll want, because currently they see something that will inevitably lead to destruction, but they still benefit from it, so they support the system. But ultimately, the smarter ones are starting to realize that that isn't sustainable long term. Let's borrow a word from our enemies. Sustainability, it isn't sustainable. It produces nothing. So, and our side produces society, actual, the forces that actually make society function and run in a healthy way. And I think there is a future for us here. And the future belongs to those who show up for it. And we are, and they aren't. So ultimately, who's going to win? Is a question you need to ask yourself whenever you're black-pilled about the latest tranny story hour or whatever. Yeah, these things are bad, and you should try to do whatever you can to stop it. And we've had local wins like in Ohio, but ultimately you have to think about the long-term picture here, because it took them almost 100 years to institutionalize this system here in this country, and the West is a facsimile. So it will take us a while to build a system or an idea that elites will want to support. And I think we have that, and they don't ultimately. They've lost the people who would ultimately kind of build that and sustain that.
I think it's because the American dream, that lie that was cultivated and pushed, everything from the Statue of Liberty to the melting pot lie, all of that vision has been fake from the beginning. And I think that the people that were tricked into buying into that, the boomers and in some way the generation right before them, I think that as they die out and as the bio-Leninist mongrels take over that narrative, that dream, that lie becomes evident for what it is. It's fake. And I think that people of your generation know that sharply, because you see the melting pot and the American dream, so to speak, as exactly what it is. It is just a fat lie that wants to create poison, cancer, and chaos. It's not a healthy vision. And I think that vision is dying. And I think that's good. And I love America. I'm a patriot, but in my opinion, the America that I was raised by my Appalachian people here, the America that I was raised to love was destroyed in the mid 1800s. And we need something better. We need something new. We need something else, because the America that is not the America that I love. It is not the America I was raised and taught that was great. It has nothing to do with the values or the passion that I was told being an American is when I was growing up. And I think a lot of Southerners are that way. That's why a lot of us are sort of the South will rise again, neo-Confederate type of persuasion, is because our families raised us knowing that the America that is is not what it's supposed to be. And I think that despite lacking that kind of upbringing, I think a lot of young Americans realize that now.
No, a lot of young men like myself are disaffected from the system, because ultimately, like, there is no like we can't have a house that's like on pretty much inflation. Like, it's almost impossible to have a family for people. Like, there's no way to like actually like have a good life. Like it's increasingly becoming impossible, and that's what they want. But ultimately, who wants to support a system where they actually can't have the life they want? Young people are not happy with what they have. They're not happy with eat the bugs, live in the pod. Rent for your entire life, own nothing. Like,
Yeah.
that's an unhappy narrative that will produce people who don't want to live. Ultimately, I'll say
Yeah.
that in my grim term.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that with the younger generations, and they're increasingly disaffected with this idea.
Mm-hmm. And another white pill here, if you care about demographics and you care about the white race more than ethnicity, white people in America are very numerous. Like, we only in certain areas are we being demographically eradicated. In rural America, our numbers are bigger than they've ever been. And so that's one of the reasons why I focus on networking with people who not necessarily that live extremely remote, because I don't live in an extremely remote area. Pretty much everywhere in Appalachia is only like a 45-minute drive from any city. But the Appalachian people that I network with and talk to, like, we have big families. It's the townships that I visit, they're just chock full of white people with big families that, are starting businesses and trying to get farms off the ground and stuff like that. And it's a good thing to be white pilled about that, because if you are one of these people that are stuck with caring about demographic numbers and you all you can see is race, like, there's a lot of people like that on our side of things. And I encourage you, if you're listening right now and you are a person who is racially focused in big picture ways, you need to be white pilled and realize that white people aren't going away anytime soon. Like, we have a lot of good folks. We are building culture. We're building communities. And you, young man listening to this, you need to be a part of that. Okay? So go out there, start a business, start a family. I know it's not easy. Hell, it's hard as hell. But you need to do something. You need to build yourself up, be the best, most righteous, kindest, and smartest man that you can be, and at the same time, build culture around you and participate with others who are doing the same. That is how you can contribute to the well-being of your race, if that's what you care about. And so that's caring about race. That's my bailiwick. That's my public platform I have chosen to champion. And I want people that care about that to listen to my words and heed my wisdom. Make wise choices and invest in white people's future.
Yes, because ultimately black pillars achieve nothing. What do they achieve besides, bringing themselves into despair? They do the work of our enemies for them, essentially.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because remember, the anti-whites, or if you're one of the crazy JQ people, those anti-white Jews, man, they want you to be a radicalized black-pilled mess. That's what they want you to be. Deprive them of that victory by being a healthy, well-balanced, successful member of your society, and by building enriching elements of your local community and culture. That is how you fight against them. Don't be what they want you to be. Be what you want to be. Be what you should be. That is how you win. That's how you have victory over them.
Yes, that's how we actually win and build things. Which, again, the old adage goes: strong men build great societies. Weak societies make weak men. Weak societies, destroy men,
Yeah.
create hard times. I think we're in the hard times, which are
I think
creating the
we are.
strong men.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, we're probably going to have to go through that cycle, which again will be painful.
It will
It's not
be.
going to be great, but
Yep. And
ultimately, it will produce
unfortunately,
something
people my
better.
age and your age, like you're in your young 20s, right?
I'm 20, yes.
Okay. And I'm just now in my 40s. So we're about 20 years apart. And I think people like me and you, we unfortunately, our lives are going to be living through the hard times part of that cycle. but we need to stay white pilled, because things are nowhere near as bad right now as they were for the Germans that were bombed in Dresden. Things are no bad as they are right now for the people that had to live and die in labor under the Soviet Union or Mao's Red China. And they still live. There are still Russians and Germans and Chinese people. They lived through that, and we're going to live through this. And so what's important is to not give up and to keep building in the face of oblivion, because one day oblivion's going to come for us all. Not even this planet is going to last for forever. No building, no culture, no race is going to last forever. But what matters is building and being positive and creating for the well-being of your family and your community and your people as long as you can, as best as you can. And that's what we should do. That's what we should all focus on. And the more of us that do that, the shorter those hard times are going to last, and the better the good times will be when that time is over.
Yes, the better the golden age will be once we resurge, ultimately. Well, that was a really excellent conversation, Yizz. I really enjoyed it. And is there anything you would like to shill or promote before we kind of close out the stream?
No, I'll just do my usual promotion of I have a channel. I stream regularly on Monday evenings, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. It's called Discordant Dragons. It is a fun variety show where we look at 5 hot topics of the week. It's almost always, clown world news. And we laugh, we discuss each topic shortly for 15 or 20 minutes. And then we have memes and funny videos and white pilling articles at the end. It's just a really fun, wholesome, and comedic stream. It's a little spicy for YouTube, so the streams don't stay up on my YouTube, but they stay up. Once I can get enough followers, they will stay up on Rumble, they'll stay up on Odyssey, and they stay up for 3 days on DLive. And usually I do 1 or 2 morning walk videos, which is me walking through rural Appalachia where I live, sharing my wisdom and my thoughts of the day. That's my morning walk series. Come check that out on my channels. And in the description of this video, you can find my, I have one link called Find My Friends, which is, you can find all my links there. My Rumble isn't on that yet because it's still in its infancy and I haven't got it added there yet. But just subscribe to me, help me grow. I don't have a lot of followers, but I would love to continue doing what I do for years to come. And hey, maybe if you get to know me, you can come to one of my awesome cookouts or one of my fun camping trips. And the only thing I'll leave everybody with is the reason why I say what I say and care how I care is I want a future of thriving, healthy white people of all ages to have their own countries and a rich, beautiful culture that they can celebrate being a part of. That is a positive vision that I want you to share. Go free with me. Use the Go Free method in your life and be a part of celebrating the well-being of white people instead of championing the opposite of that for other people. Love and celebrate your in-group. And I guess I'll leave it. I guess I'll leave it there. That's what I have to end with.
Indeed, please check out the Go Free Method, buy the book, check it out, or just watch some of the streams with Yizz. I'm sure she goes over all the time. But, what's that guy's name?
Jason is his name. He goes by No White Guilt, and his regular Go Free stream, which is where we talk about tactics and the Go Free method and how it's winning and how our language is taking control of the I guess you could say the public conversation. That is on Sundays at 4 to 8 p.m. on Jason Kuna's channel. He's on all of the places. I don't know if he's on Rumble, but he's on like all of the other ones. He streams to like 5 or 6 different places. You can find him on YouTube and anywhere by No White Guilt NWG. And the streams on Sunday is the long stream where he goes over news. He talks about the Go Free method. We talk about what the community is up to, how we've had influence, that kind of thing. And he's a very passionate guy. He's a little older than me, but we're basically the same age group. He is a passionate Southern American man from Virginia. I think you'll like him. Come check him out. You can learn a lot about the implementation of the Go Free method from just hanging out in these streams and listening to not just him, but what the other people in the community have as testimonials of how they have used this method to get the people in their lives to understand and notice things where the previous failed method hasn't worked. So it's a good, wholesome community stream that happens between 4 and 8 p.m. on Sundays. Definitely come check that out, too. You'll learn a lot about the Go Free stuff there.
Definitely go check that out. And I think I'll leave it off with a inspirational quote. Again, the lie can't last forever, so keep your heads up.